If those are all our thoughts on that story, we're going to move on to our next story. Um, so this one, I want to make it very clear up front. Um, if any viewers are familiar with my time on surveillance report, you know that one of my hobbies is attacking politicians regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. So this story concerns the current administration, but I just want to assure you guys that regardless of who is in power, I would still call this out as a bad move. So the headline, this comes from Reuters. It says the Trump administration removes 3 spyware linked executives from the sanctions list. So apparently during the Biden administration, the US sanctioned 3 executives of Intellexa, which is a spyware maker. I believe they make Predator, which is a malware. A lot of you guys have heard of Pegasus, right? I think that's the one, right? That's the one from NSO Group, I believe.
Yeah, NSO Group, Pegasus, yes. And
Okay,
if
cool.
you heard more, Aragon Group, they also develop their own like special spyware as well. But yes, I think for
Yeah.
this company specifically, it's Predator.
Yeah, it's Predator, which we have seen used on Greek journalists and even members of the US Congress. I actually did not know that last part. Holy crap.
Insane,
But
right?
yeah, so right? So, for those who don't know, this is like the state level, like the highest level of malware. This is the stuff where companies like Intellexa will go to places like DEF CON or other hacker conventions around the world, and they will find really good hackers. Like, I'm not making this up. This happens. They will like listen in on a talk, for example, and somebody will be like, "Oh, here's how I found this 0-day in iOS that allowed me to like read all the messages." And they'll go up to that person and be like, "Hey, if you find any more 0 days, give us a call first before you call Apple." And these companies will literally pay millions of dollars for vulnerabilities, usually in phones, but I'm sure in all kinds of systems. And what they offer is, and I'm sure it's like a string of vulnerabilities, I'm sure it's not like one thing. They will offer malware that's usually 0 click. Like, you don't have to do anything. I think Pegasus for a while, they just had to send you like an iMessage and it would just automatically install itself. Again, no, you didn't need to download something. You didn't need to click a link. You didn't even need to accept the message. It just worked. And I, I hate to say historically, and I think this is still like 90% true. When Pegasus first became very mainstream, we saw a lot of people really panicking and they're like, "Oh, how do I know if my phone's infected?" 99% of the time, if you're asking that question, they're probably not using it on you. Because again, these are exploits that cost millions of dollars. And the more they use it, the more that companies like Apple and Google are going to notice this malware is creeping into their phones, and the more work they're going to put into figuring it out and fixing it and reverse engineering it. So they're going to be very selective with who they use it on. Usually it's like journalists, activists, like really like hardcore, high profile activists, politicians, things like that. So lately, though, we have seen, or at least I feel like I've seen a lot more stories popping up about Apple letting people know that, like, hey, you've been targeted. You might have malware on your phone. Apparently, Apple has a feature now that does that. I don't know if Google does. I don't think they do, but it could be like, what do they call that? The confirmation bias, where like I see the story a lot, so it feels like it's happening more often, but I don't know if that's actually true. I don't have any statistics on me. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of the main story here is we're not sure why, but for some reason the US Treasury Department has decided that they don't want to sanction these 3 anymore. They claim that, what did they say? This was done as part of the normal administrative process in response to a petition request for reconsideration. And they said that each of the individuals had demonstrated measures to separate themselves from the Intellexa consortium. So basically, they're saying, "Oh, we received an appeal, and these guys don't work for Intellexa anymore," which is, I guess, I don't know. That's a take, but yeah, it's I don't know. This I think the reason we wanted to cover this story again is regardless of political affiliation, it shows that the current administration is kind of cozying up a little bit to spyware makers. I'm going to fact check myself here, but I think there was even a story recently where, yes, I do remember this now. They, I don't know if this was Biden era or first Trump era, but the government did actually at one point, I think it was Biden era, but don't quote me. They did actually forbid the US to buy spyware like this. And I'm sure, for the record, I'm sure there's a lot of loopholes and a lot of under the table and like, that kind of stuff. But at least on paper, they said, "Hey, you can't do this anymore." And the current administration has rolled that back too and said, "No, you can totally buy spyware and deploy it." So, um, yeah, it's just really unsettling. And again, I don't care who's in office. I don't care if it's a Republican, a Democrat, a Martian. I don't care. The point is like anytime that any government shows a willingness to use this kind of stuff is really concerning. Kevin was just talking about spyware and that's kind of the over the counter commercial stuff that abusive partners might put on there, but it's still yeah, not good.
Yeah, like, I think, like, we were definitely a little scared to cover the story at Nurse because, the headline seemed, like, a little too partisan, of course. But I wanna emphasize that Privacy Guys does not endorse, like, anyone, any political affiliation. We're not legally allowed to do so, according to US law. Um, but one of the reasons why I wanted to include this story and discuss it is because, uh, eh different governments will have different responses. We can't just label saying, "Oh, the U.S. is friendly to spyware. The U.S. opposes spyware. This country sponsors it. This country won't." It is ultimately a tool to be used. All right, and just because one administration take a more heavy-handed approach to targeted spyware doesn't mean that in the future it will be utilized. Or even when that administration is still in power, you don't know if the individual law enforcement agencies are trying to sneakily acquire target spyware tool sets to deploy without the knowledge of the federal government itself. Um, so it's like I'm saying though, regardless of the current administration, regardless of the government power, like we will try our best to like fact check and dispute any potential wrongdoing. Um, and it's clear right here is that while they may like these three executives may have potentially separated themselves from Intellexa, the fact that their software usually target human rights activists, journalists, even members of the U.S. Congress. This is clearly a moral bankruptcy. The fact that they're willing to sell their tools to anyone without vetting what it's used for is frankly insane. And if there's anything that Privacy Guys will call for, though, is responsible regulation against these tools, regardless of where you are. Because these tools, if they won't be used against you now, they will be used against you in the future if you do something piss someone enough. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This stuff should not be normalized. I'm telling you. Like this is the one time where maybe we shouldn't be selling hacker tools to everyone in the free market, mind you, because regardless who we are, if you say something loud on the internet and they get enough views, who knows? Maybe some random government really doesn't like that and hacks your phone. Like this is something that should not be normalized. And any sort of like sanctions lifting, even by folks who do pinky promise that they won't do these type of things anymore, um, goes to show that there is this very slow and rapid normalization of targeted spyware and it will be more common throughout the world, mind you. This stuff maybe becoming more common across like US law enforcement agencies, but also has been incredibly common in Spain, of course, in which like even Catalonia or Barcelona is now like the capital of targeted spyware firms. Ever since like a lot of like former SNL group alumni actually migrated to Barcelona, after the whole fallout from Pegasus. Um, there's been a lot of like companies founded in Dubai, in the UAE, for example, Israel, of course, but also like Russia and China as well. Like throughout the world, we're seeing a lot more like greater instances of targeted spyware firms, and they went through numerous legal challenges, lawsuits. But eventually, these people will just do it. They'll quit the company, join a new company, and then sell their services again and rebadge what we thought was been sued to death. Um, you may have known that the NSO group has experienced a lot of difficulties recently. A WhatsApp lawsuit against them has actually like succeeded in the U.S. government, at least. I believe it was like jointly like operated by both like Apple and WhatsApp, and essentially they're forced to pay out millions of dollars in damages. Right now, the lawsuit is still ongoing, but and NSO group is still managing to survive, disputing every single way of actually paying that judgment in court while its current team members, right, disperse to other companies to create new companies in Barcelona, to create new companies in the UAE, or to even join governments themselves and leverage their expertise in more legally sanctioned practices. So I think right here the takeaway isn't like, oh, this administration is bad or this administration is good, whatever. The takeaway here is that these people will evade punishment. Like, like no matter how many companies you ban or sue to death, they'll just simply disperse and create another company in some other country and try to find some other way to make money based on their talents. And quite frankly, it's disgusting.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on to that. Just like you said at the start, it's really, this is something that uh I've definitely said a lot is it's dangerous to give governments any sort of authority because you never know when the winds will shift. Like even if you're very conservative and you're pro Trump and you're like, yeah, he's going to use it to find the bad guys. Okay, what happens when a Democrat gets into power and now has that same authorization to use the spyware? It's really unsettling stuff and it's really hard to, I don't know, I say it's hard to justify, especially because, as far as I know, we haven't really seen any cases where it was used successfully to catch actual bad guys. It's again, maybe it's like a confirmation bias or, just because these are the ones that make headlines, but it seems like every time I see spyware talked about, it's like, oh, deployed on journalists, deployed on politicians, deployed on activists in repressive countries. Like I've yet to read a single story. And for real, people, if there are, please send them my way because I actually genuinely want to read them. I've yet to see a single story where it's like, oh, they use Pegasus to stop a terrorist, to stop a plot, to find this person who was, kidnapped and held ransom. Like, I don't know. It seems to me like these only ever get abused for bad purposes. And yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, I think like maybe in the future, I would love to actually figure out, okay, what are actually some legitimate usage cases of target spyware, and are these cases even rare? I'm sure, like, if we pretend to like to purchase their software, maybe they'll be willing to share a few case studies that they used in the past. But if I swear, if it turns out they're using cases where they actually like targeted like journalists or dissidents, then well, that's a little ironic, right? Um, but I think it's good to actually objectively fight against facts here. Like, how many criminals are actually being caught? How many the terrorists are being apprehended because of these target spyware actions. Because it seems to me that there is very limited information where it's been used in that case. I mean, I'm sure it has been in the past. I'm not denying that, but it seems to me that the only people using your phone so far, in which you could be vulnerable to a 0 day attack, are not terrorists or criminals who probably thrown away their phones a long time ago. They're usually people with lives who also have a voice in things. Um, so yeah, I think I may potential food for that for us to discuss in the upcoming future, Nate.